Big Green. Are you an ultimate Eagles football fan? Well, you're in the right place. Ready? This is Birds 365, hosted by the new Mac and Mac, Jody McDonald and John McMullen.
Here we go!
Who collectively have covered and talked about more than 50 plus years of Eagles football. Kick off your day with Birds 365. You'll get debate.
We love to argue.
You'll get the real story from inside the locker room. And you'll hear from some of the great football minds from around the region. You're about to become an Eagles insider. Get in the game. Join Jody Mack and Johnny Mack and join the football community that flocks to Birds 365. Birds 365 starts right now.
Welcome to the NFL. Let's go! Let's go! Go! Good morning, Eagles fans. Appreciate you streaming on in here to Birds 365 with your Mac and Mac guys. John McMullen and Jody McDonald here to hang with you as we get that much closer to Eagles Giants. Less than 80 hours now until kickoff of the divisional game to be played in South Philly on Saturday night. Johnny Mac down in South Philly yesterday. We got some more info to add to our estimation, more like guesstimation, as to what will be Jalen Hurts' shoulders condition when the game gets underway on Saturday night. I say more good than bad. How about you?
Oh, yeah. Far more good than bad. I mean, now it kind of depends how you frame it. Obviously, he's not on the injury report, which was an estimation because it was a walkthrough, but so very positive sign. Now I've seen other people say, well, that means Jalen's completely healthy. No, that doesn't.
No,
it means
doesn't.
He's going to play. That's what that means. So it kind of depends how you frame it. And I've said from the start, we're not going to know if the Eagles are protecting him or if he's protecting himself until game time. I mean,
Sure.
And Jalen was asked that question flat out, and even he said, I don't know, depends on the situation. And what I kind of took from that, people can take it however they want, the offense is going to be the offense, and if they get up late, they're going to start protecting things. If they have a comfortable lead, they're going to err on the side of caution. That's how I kind of took that. But I do expect, everybody expected him to play, and that's certainly going to be the case. And I do expect the Eagles to put the zone read stuff back of the offense. And, he made that quote, which is a good one. As a starting quarterback in this league, you always have a bounty on your head, not a bounty in Buddy Ryan terms or Greg Williams, Sean Payton terms, but legitimate bounties where, are illegal, but the Giants are going to want to hit that shoulder and test that shoulder. There's no question about it.
Again, much like yourself, I came away feeling pretty good about it. If you felt one way yesterday at this time, if you're on Birds 365, appreciate you joining in playoff week. I feel better about it because, hey, yes, no limitations in practice, full go. Yeah, I know it was only a walkthrough, but last week they had walkthroughs too, and he was listed as either partial or didn't participate in those practices you got to watch. He didn't do a whole hell of a lot of throwing, so that's a very good step in the right direction. Love the quote of the bounty stuff. Got a bounty on him every week. He's the quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles. What do you expect? There's a bounty on the opposing quarterback. And the fact that he said was feeling good. Yeah, I was hoping for a different answer on will you be able to run the offense the way it's normally run. He kind of hedged that you laid out that, well, it kind of depends. He didn't know. I was hoping for, Yeah, we're going to run our offense. The offense is the offense, and it's going to be what it's been all year. He didn't quite go there. So that's my only restraint. I'm getting excited about Jalen Hurts and his level of participation and what he's going to be able to do Saturday against the Giants. I feel better. I'm still not at 100%, and I still will cling to, and it'll be this way right up until kickoff, when the Eagles will defer if they win the coin flip. The only thing that scares me is Jalen's shoulder, because if Jalen is, and again, these are individual belief type numbers, 90% of what he was when he was the leading candidate for MVP in the National Football League, Eagles are going to win this game, and they're probably going to win it handily. But we won't know that until the game starts. And we got a little bit more information yesterday, which was good, but not all of it was perfect, but it is certainly a step in the right direction. So we'll take that. Lane Johnson also back in practice yesterday. A couple legal injuries are going to be very key in this game coming against the Giants. Maybe it's me, but for some reason, I'm less concerned about Lane Johnson than I am about Jalen Hurts. And Lane Johnson's injury is actually worse than Jalen Hurts' injury, but it's the type of injury that you can play with, that you can get numbed up and you can go out there and you can play the game. We heard so much about how much pain Jalen was in after the game when he played against the Giants 2 weeks ago. Oh, that can be able to say the same thing about Lane Johnson, but I'm pretty damn confident that he's going to go out there and he's going to be Lane Johnson. Is Jalen Hurts going to be Jalen Hurts as we know him to the highest level of his play he had this year? I don't know. I hope so. Cross your fingers, but I think we're going to have to wait and see. I'm more confident that you won't see any kind of a drop-off with Lane Johnson. Am I looking at this through eagle-colored glasses?
Yeah, that's another one where, I mean, I'm a little bit more concerned than how you framed it there. I would say that. I mean, he is an offensive lineman. You got to generate power from your core. And obviously that's what he's dealing with, a core muscle injury. It's the groin more than the abdomen. Now, Lane, spoke pretty freely about it last week. And, when he returned to practice during the bye week, and he seemed very confident that he could play through it. I know Cam Jordan has played through it, and he's friends with him, and he was going to talk to him. So I'll probably get more information on that this week. But we'll have to see. I mean, the thing about Lane is, and, with all due respect for the Giants, and I think, 2 years from now, we might be having a different conversation, because Kayvon Thibodeau is a tremendous athlete, but he's raw, and he's still, no matter where you look, he only had 4 sacks. He wasn't, if you want to look at the advanced sites, he wasn't a top 50 edge rusher. He's not there yet. And is what I'm trying to say. And Lane Johnson is, the best right tackle in the world, as Nick Sirianni calls him. He hasn't given up a sack in over a year. It's ridiculous. He's given up 1 quarterback hit. He is a dominant, and nobody brings this up. I guess because he's a right tackle, and some of them, most of the all-pro teams now, they do it more equally, and they do left tackle, right tackle. But in years past, when Lane first started, they usually put both left tackles. Just left tackles were more high profile. This is a Hall of Fame level player. Everybody talks about it with Kelsey. Lane Johnson's a Hall of Fame level player at right tackle. So from the standpoint of 80%, these made up numbers, 90%, he's gonna be just fine. My question is, can he finish the game? Can he finish? If you're hurt, you're hurt. And it's happened to him before. We just had to leave. He got hurt in the Giants game originally. That's where it all started. The blowout at MetLife. And he was forced to leave. Now, it was a blowout, and he said after that game he could have finished if it were a close game. So, there's other aspects to it, but he did have to leave the game, and I'm at least, a little wary that he might not be able to finish the game.
Maybe it's because of his career resume, as you just pointed out. We know he's Pro Bowl, All Pro, these many levels, and Hall of Fame consideration has to be given as well. I just think he's going to be able to be a full go the entire game, and he will play like Lane Johnson, not like a partial Lane Johnson or a compromised Lane Johnson. I think he's going to be Lane Johnson, and maybe, that is a little cockeyed optimistic out of me, but I'm giving you my honest read. I'm doing that with Jalen Hurts, which my questions are lessened, but they haven't completely dissipated. Lane Johnson, I'm pretty darn positive. Now, yesterday you told us you would be highly surprised if Avonte Maddox was able to play Sunday against the Giants, and that was kind of confirmed by yesterday. The only Eagle not to participate in practice was Avonte Maddox. Maybe that was me just trying to do math, trying to figure out how many weeks since he got hurt, and the fact that the Eagles didn't put him on the IR, which they could have, because you mark off 4 weeks and then you can come back. You like roster flexibility, so if they knew he was going to be guaranteed to be out for at least 4 weeks, they would have put him on IR. They didn't, so this would have been week 4. So I was crossing my fingers and hoping that could be the case. Yeah, it's not happening, is it, John? We're just going to have to go under the assumption that Avonte Maddox isn't playing until we find out he is, right?
Yeah, exactly. And there is hope that he'll be back, whether it's the NFC Championship game or a potential Super Bowl appearance. So, but that's one we'll have to wait and see. It's pretty clear. It's very unlikely he's going to play this week. And, the positive to that is you don't have to deal with the big explosive offense, the big explosive passing offense, the great receivers that so many teams around this league have. Isaiah Hodgins has been a great story. Darius Slayton's, a competent NFL receiver. And Richie James has done a nice job, but these are not, high level receivers that you're typically going to see in this league. So you should be able to get through. And I think Jonathan Gannon made the prudent decision, and he blasted, what's going to happen is CJ Gardner-Johnson's going to play safety when they're in their base defense, which is, the 2 linebackers. And when they need a nickel, CJ's going to play the nickel, and Reed Blankenship is going to be in at safety, and he's earned it. Reed Blankenship has played better than Josiah Scott more consistently, I think, is the real sort of thing that put him over the top in that discussion. Because Josiah's played well at times, but he's also played really poorly at times. And, the consistency just hasn't been there. Reed's been a lot more consistent. And CJ's, probably the best thing about week 18 was that CJ proved he was completely healthy back from the lacerated kidney. And that was a big positive sign.
And you mentioned the Eagles' base defense. Isn't the Eagles' base defense really with a nickel cornerback out there? Aren't they in that higher percentage of time?
Yeah.
And they don't.
Yeah.
So
Base
to me is the
old tropes.
You're in most of the time, and most of the time they've got 3 cornerbacks on the field.
Old tropes die hard.
Yes.
But they have changed recently when they played poor passing teams, and for lack of a better term, and they played less nickel. Now when they're playing, and most teams in the NFL have, there's differences between the Tyreek Hills of the world and the Devontae Adams and the Justin Jeffersons of the world. But most teams have good receivers that can really hurt you. And the majority of the time, the base defense should be defined as having a nickel on the field. But they have shifted later in the season, and they were playing lesser nickelback, partially because Avante's not out there. That's probably part of it. When he's playing, they want him out there as much as possible. So that factors into it as well. But also because they thought they could get away against certain teams that weren't very explosive passing the ball. So they have shifted a little bit. And the Giants are that type of team. So they might not play as much nickelback as they typically do against most teams.
Yeah, but the nickel is their base defense now. No matter who they're playing, I think that they have a third cornerback out there more often than not. But that's I don't break it down.
Unquestionably, from a stats point, it's not even close.
Right.
I'm saying old tropes die hard. You know, people say 4-3 base defense, 3-4 base defense. The Eagles don't even play any of that, but that's how people identify it. So.
And the key guy who's going to benefit from it, as you just pointed out, is Reed Blankenship. He's going to be playing some safety because they're going to drop Chauncey Gardner-Johnson down into the slot to play the slot receiver. Hopefully he's up for the task. I like the alignment better than when Josiah Scott is out there. You mentioned some good, some bad. The bad has been really bad, and it jumps off the page like a sore thumb. Reed Blankenship. Now, Daniel Jones is a very good running quarterback. Actually, he's a better running quarterback than the Giants' third-string quarterback, who did run over Reed Blankenship down by the end zone earlier. That's one play that Reed would like that back. But he has played pretty darn well when he was just straight up filling in for Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. And he's probably going to have to make some plays against the Giants this upcoming Saturday. All right, last question for you before we get up our first guest. That would be, as usual, on Wednesdays, Mike Gill. Hey, are there any awards to be won? Gill coming up here in a couple of minutes. There's the Wednesday award.
Yeah, not for the Eagles. They didn't have to play, so that was their award.
Can't win any. They don't get They don't get the bye week award. They didn't have the eating of the Pizza Hut for the Giants, for the coaches.
That's
watching
the best.
Giants.
By the way, can I just throw? You know, I made a lot of jokes about that yesterday. There were a stunning amount of Giants fans that took that as disrespect. I don't know what's wrong with people. I really don't. This game can't come close enough. So, you know, I joked. I put the over-under at 2.5 fans taking this seriously. I put Eagles coaches ordered dinner during Giants-Vikings game. I haven't seen that level of disrespect since Micah Parsons talked about how talented the Eagles offense was. You know, kind of tweaking both ends of the spectrum, Eagles fans and Giants fans. And I said, how many people are going to think this is serious? There can't be anybody not getting this kind of sarcasm. Oh, there were people. It was way over 2.5. It was way over 2.5. That was the easiest prop bet of all time. And it's unbelievable. Unbelievable, Jody.
And I'm kind of with Siri on this. I like stuffed crust pizza. I thought it was a good call by him. Some people go, nobody eats Pizza Hut anymore. Why? They got all these other great Italian places.
The other aspect.
Get another pizza. Really, we're evaluating the choice of Pizza Hut as their pizza restaurant choice. Come on, we have better things to talk about with the Eagles Giants coming up as to how misguided they were to go to the Pizza Hut call.
Oh my God, you had so many pizza snubs. You got to go local. Oh, you can't do that. You can't go to. Just stop it. Stop it. You don't have to parse. They're human beings. He wanted stuffed crust pizza. Leave him alone.
Exactly. And I happen to be a fan of the Pizza Hut. It's been a while, but I've always enjoyed it. So good on Nick that he got the kind of pizza that he wanted. I am going to ask both you and Mike Gill, who's going to join us coming up in just a couple of minutes, about the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles and what this game kind of means to his resume. Phenomenal year, coach of the year candidate, may or may not get it. I think it's 3 of the 4 teams left in the NFC playoffs are the top candidates for coach of the year. And I think any one of the 3 can legitimately lay claim to it. One of them will get it, in my estimation. But reputations grow with postseason wins. So how big a game this is for Coach Sirianni. All right, he's John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald. You got your Mac and Mac guys here on Birds 365 As we do on Wednesdays, we're going to head down the shore next. Mike Gill from the Sports Pass, 93.7 ESPN Radio. Going to stream on in with us here on Birds 365.
My name is Fran Salerno. I'm a managing director here at Del Valle Insurance Group. Been in the business for over 36 years, saving people money on their insurance needs. Give us a call. Let us help you custom design an insurance plan that meets both your needs and budget.
Since 1977, it's always been about you, the community, at Rafferty Subaru. And through the Subaru Love Promise, we prove we care by supporting charities like So Good Now.
So Good Now helps kids in under-resourced areas by connecting them with student athletes to serve as mentors. We remove barriers so athletes can help youth in the corners of our communities where light and love are needed most.
When you choose Rafferty Subaru, you help organizations like So Good Now.
It's all about you at Rafferty Subaru.
Go for the beers, go for the cheers, go for the hit and the hits. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean.
We all know that taxes are just part of life. It's true during our working years, but also in retirement. But what you might not know is up to 85% of your Social Security benefits might be taxed. Our team at Thrive Financial has helped retire thousands of people across the Delaware Valley by asking questions they never knew they needed to ask, including how their Social Security benefits might be taxed. It's time to be proactive on taxes. Get your Thrive Retirement Tax Playbook today.
Post-game show with Seth Joyner.
I knew that they had a running game.
Derek Gunn.
He has put in the effort.
Devin Caney.
Had we not won the Super Bowl, what would we be saying?
And Mike Missinelli.
Well, you know who Philly is.
Post-game, now streaming on the 6ABC family of apps.
Countdown to kickoff of Eagles Giants is on. We appreciate your being part of it here on Birds 365. While you're at it, you can hit the like button. They always do. When Gil comes on, everybody hits the like button. Why? I don't know, but they seem to like him, so we appreciate those of you who do. Mike Gill looks like he's rocking some kind of hoodie this morning, much like Nick Sirianni, and Jalen Hurts. What do you got on the hoodie today, Gil? What's it say? Just plain?
Just blue.
Nothing special?
No,
Okay,
no
just
WBU today.
Nope. I thought about it, but
Yeah,
no,
it's a Philly thing today. That was the
Yeah,
big thing in the
that's-
Eagles locker room.
I don't want to pander to anybody today.
Come
The
on.
the pander in chief, but people aren't happy, Mike, because he didn't get the right pizza. He didn't go local.
No,
Your own
listen.
producer. I want to rip Josh Hennig. Nice guy. But he was one of those snobs. I was making fun of the whole thing. And he was like, well, he should order from a local. I mean, come on. Who cares?
I wanted to know, as soon as he said that, and then it's everywhere, how many people last night either thought about, because they haven't ordered Pizza Hut, in however long, or actually said, you know what, I'm going to get Pizza Hut tonight. Like, that was a tremendous.
Yeah, they should get a sponsorship.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. How many people thought about it or actually pulled the trigger?
Guilty as charged. I absolutely did. Didn't get it because there's not a Pizza Hut in my area. The one we had shut down 20 years ago. So that's why I just don't get pizza. If it was still close, I'd still get it. But it shut down 20 years ago. But it absolutely worked on me. And you're right. Sirianni should at least get a free pie sent over to him today, later today. Right. All right, here's what I need out of you, Gil. I asked this of John in the first segment. I had BLG on my WIP show last night. If you felt the way you felt about Jalen Hurts at this time yesterday, and then you had the assembly of the Eagles down in South Philly and the listing on the injury list and the quotes by Jalen Hurts afterwards, John and I both feel better about it. Don't know to the same degree. So I'm asking you. How much better do you feel about Jalen Hurts and his ailing shoulder after the first day of activity leading up to the Giant game yesterday?
I mean, I would say that I'm almost not even thinking about it at this point.
Wow.
I know that might sound like, how can you not think about it? I mean, I don't know what the injury was. None of us really do. But, John had been on my show a bunch, and we had kind of thought it was like a 2 to 3 week thing. We're talking about 5-6 weeks now since this happened. I mean, that game that he played in a game 2 weeks ago. If he was healthy enough and cleared to play in a NFL football game, he had to have been healthy enough that you're not concerned about this injury going forward. This is 2 weeks later. I've woke up now I'm 45 years old, but I've woke up some days where, like, out of nowhere, I have no idea what happened, and I can't put any weight on my ankle. And then the next day, it's just gone. Like, gone. This guy's 24 years old. I can't imagine if he played in a National Football League game with an injury that 2 weeks later that it's not significantly better after really doing nothing. I kind of am at the point now where I think, is he going to be limited? I don't think the playbook will be limited. How about that?
Yeah, and that's kind of how I phrased it as well, Mike. The playbook isn't going to be limited. Now, I want to see, it's interesting because that's what the medical sort of documentation is, right? Grade 2 SC joint shoulder sprain, 2 to 3 weeks. But here's where, and we had a doctor on this program who kind of explained it well, Jess Flynn. The difference is these sort of timetables are talking about normal people, which, you don't sprain your SC joint, maybe in a car accident, you got to have a weird hit. And then you're going to go out and be in another car accident. Jalen Hurts, even though he's 24, even though, as Nick Sirianni says, he has superpower-like healing capabilities, he does the injury, and then he's going out and having 260 pounds edge rushers going at him again. And even if it's going to practice and throwing the football, well, typically, if you're just rehabbing from this injury, you're just taking it easy. He can't take it easy. That's why my concern is, well, there's two concerns. One, if he gets hit on the button again, that's a big concern. And obviously, we know Wink Martindale is going to bring the house, even though he gave the Vikings a curveball. That's because the Vikings are the Vikings. He's not going to do that against the Eagles. So that's number one. Number two is the setup. Look, I expect the Eagles to beat the Giants. Then you got 1 week and you're back at it again against either the 49ers or Cowboys. When he had the 2 weeks off and things could calm down with that injury, Mike. And if they get to the Super Bowl, you have 2 weeks off again. But in between, you got to go through all those car crashes with that injury, and you got to be out there a week later. Those are my two concerns.
Right. You know, the constant action that is about to come that, you know, it could further bring the injury back or reoccur or cause some more pain. But I think entering this game, it's almost to the point where I'm at peace with, I think he's going to be pretty good. The playbook's going to be, you know, the game, we've said it before, if he plays the game that he played 2 weeks ago, they're not winning this game, right? Most likely, we're talking about what a disappointment this was and how unfortunate it was that the quarterback got hurt that late in the season, and it really affected his play. I don't know when we're all back, your guys on Birds 365, me on 97.3, doing my show on Monday, that we're talking about they lost this game because Jalen Hurts was not Jalen Hurts. I think you're going to get the version that we saw for most of this year. I think that the playbook will be open. He will be making his decisions, and he made decisions at an MVP level this year. That's why he was in that conversation and deserved to be in that conversation. Every decision he made, I mean, I don't know how many plays he was a part of this year, but he made the right decision probably 98% of the time. That's unbelievable.
And we'll see what those decisions are on Saturday. I'm glad to hear or get the feeling both of you guys a little bit more optimistic than I am. And I'm not pessimistic, but Gil's like, injury, what, shoulder? I'm not quite there yet. But where I am on the positive side, the optimistic side, is Lane Johnson. I think they're going to plug and play Lane Johnson, and he's going to be the Pro Bowl, All-Pro, future Hall of Fame level right tackle that he has been for years here in Philadelphia, even though his injury is supposedly more severe than the one Jalen Hurts is dealing with, and he's coming back basically on the same time frame Jalen Hurts did. Is this just rooting interest that I got eagle-colored glasses on? I know I got different coloration on my face, but I'm not wearing glasses. I can assure you that. Maybe wearing a hat. Where are you at with Lane Johnson and what level he's going to play at on Saturday?
See, that's where I'm a little concerned. We've seen this rodeo with Lane Johnson before, you know, with the ankle. He tried to play. Now, that could have been a byproduct of, look, the team Lane is just not good enough. We know you're trying, but, you know, we're not. It's this year is just not there. Go get the thing fixed. He played in the Giant game that they won 48-22, and he had to leave that game. Now, he did say afterwards, I could have gone back if they needed me. If he's out there, I think he's going to play at an all-pro level. You're going to see that. It's the pain tolerance thing, and it's something going to happen where he twists or turns or something where he has to leave the field, and you're back to this. Is he coming back? Is he leaving? Is he, you know, I feel like he is definitely more of a question than Hurts. At the end of the game, we might say, hey, they both got through the game. They both played really well. But I think of the two, the guy that I'm more concerned about getting through the game would be Lane Johnson. And if he's out, it really changes the dynamics of the playbook, I think.
And let me follow up, if you allow me, John. I actually got a foolish call last night who said, and if they don't help Lane Johnson on that side of the defensive line, they're going to be in trouble.
I'm sorry.
I'm going, are you kidding me? With his backup, they didn't give extra help on that side. With Lane Johnson standing on the sidelines, they stuck to their offensive philosophy. You really think they're going to get now? Lane's not quite 100%. We better put an extra tight end in there. We better keep a back end to chip on that side. Are you nuts? They will play Lane Johnson the way they played Lane Johnson every game, certainly since Sirianni got here and probably all the way back to Dougie P. There's going to be no change whatsoever in the Eagles. We're actually debating as to whether the Eagles will once again, like they did against the Giants 2 weeks ago, alter their overall way of calling plays because of the injury to the quarterback. They're not going to have any change whatsoever because of Lane Johnson, are they?
No, I would not anticipate that. The only change would be they could do more. The only change they could do because Lane Johnson's out there is they have more trust in what they can do on that side of the ball. Look, Lane Johnson, though, we all know the record when he's not out there. Were they 13-22 or something like that? And he's not there. I think he's key. I mean, the Giants, you mentioned something, John, about Wink Martindale. I think that is going to be a very interesting story. You sound pretty adamant that Wink's going to send pressure. They blitzed 50% of the time against the Eagles this year. They blitzed, and it did not work. The Eagles blitzed them when they blitzed this year. Jalen Hurts was significantly better and more effective when the Giants blitzed them. They didn't blitz last week. They blitzed 22% of the time. Now, you're saying, well, that's because it's the Vikings. You got a guy who you think might be compromised. So, yeah, it sounds like they would blitz him. But is Wink Martindale also saying, we've blitzed them enough this year, and they've blitzed us. Should we show them something different? That, to me, is going to be a very interesting, maybe it's not a chess match, maybe it's more checkers, but I'm interested to see if Wink Martindale finds his inner John Gannon. I see people in the chat, if the Eagles lose, it's because of John Gannon. The Giants are only at this point because they found their inner John Gannon. Yeah. That's why they're here. That's why they beat the Vikings last week, because they did not blitz the Vikings. Because if they did blitz the Vikings like they did the first time, they would have lost.
Yeah, most likely. Wink did a tremendous job, but you and I talk about this all the time. People put too much into what happens one week into the next week, and they're two completely different teams. Where Wink got it right, you mentioned you can't deal with Jefferson in man-to-man coverage. No, you can't deal with A.J. Brown either. So there are different parts of it in the equation. One of them was Dexter Lawrence dominated that game because the center's Garrett Bradbury and the left guard's Ezra Cleveland. Poor pass protectors. This time you have Jason Kelsey and Landon Dickerson and Isaac Seumalo. Dexter's a great player, but he's not going to get 10 pressures or whatever he got. So you can't just afford to sit back there. Kayvon Thibodeau, as I told Jody before you came on, 2 years later, I might be talking differently. But right now, Lane Johnson at 85% against Kayvon Thibodeau is a mismatch in the Eagles' favor. I mean, he's going to dominate that kid. He's got 4 sacks, and people see the big name and, top 10 pick, and they go, Kayvon Thibodeau. He hasn't been that good as a rookie. I think he's going to be a good player. And then here's the second part where Wink is going to talk himself into it. Adoree Jackson, Xavier McKinney are back. They weren't there when the Eagles destroyed the Giants at MetLife Stadium. He's going to have more confidence in the back end. And then the final, tying the bow together, he wants to hit the quarterback because the quarterback has a shoulder injury. And he wants to test the shoulder. And he's not going to get home with a 4-man rush against this offensive line. So it's basically pick your poison if you're Wink Martindale. But his default setting is blitz. Yeah. He's going to blitz.
Well, that's a good thing for the Eagles then. I mean, if they're going to blitz, and I agree to the most extent. 50% of the time, maybe they dial back a little bit on that, but they still blitz on average about 45% of the time. But, I do think that you're right. I just am interested to see if he says, you know what, I'm going to show more restraint.
Well, he might show some more. Like you said, 55 is a ridiculous number. And if AJ starts gashing them early down the field, you have to adjust. That's the problem dealing with the Eagles offense when everything is in play. You can try to stop AJ Brown, but then you got Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert, vice versa. You can, if Jalen Hurts in the zone read is back in play, you got to deal with the running game and you got to worry about the quarterback. And, you're built on the foundation of the best offensive line in football.
Well, and the first time they played, Miles Sanders had 17 carries, 177 yards. He was not on the injury report yesterday. He's been wearing that brace. I'm imagining that maybe they take the blinders off of him too, and that he's able to kind of be.
Yeah, it's the playoffs, man. Yeah. They are. There's not going to be a pitch count. He's been on a pitch count. Jalen Hurts is going to run the zone read. There's nothing to save anybody for anymore. You got to win. And even though it looks relatively easy on paper from this perspective, usually at this point, there's some genuine concern. If the Eagles play well, they're going to win this game. The question is, health-wise and where that playbook, as you mentioned before, Mike, did they try to scale the playbook? Then you have some issues, but I don't think that's going to be the case.
And a key aspect for me, if you just work off last week's game against Minnesota, which they did keep Jefferson in check, they got to the quarterback without having to send blitz packages. And TJ Hawkinson kind of lit him up. And I like TJ Hawkinson. And when the Vikings made the trade, I thought it was an outstanding acquisition. He's not Dallas Goedert. So if they try and throw the same defense out that they did against Minnesota, could Goddard be the key guy downfield? Know the relationship between Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown. And you know how big a Devonta Smith fan I am. But if I'm making a guess on one guy who's going to have a breakout game, I think it could be Goddard against those giant linebackers in pass coverages. And if Jalen's shoulder is any questionable at all, the easiest throws usually to make are to the tight end. You think this could be a breakout week for Dallas Goedert, Mike?
I'm a big Goddard fan. I think he is an outstanding weapon that unfortunately gets overshadowed name-wise because of some of the other guys he plays with and then the other tight ends that he's up against. But, yeah, I agree. Hawkinson, really the last couple of weeks, the Giants have had some struggles. Now, if they blitz a lot and there's one-on-one coverage on the outside, I don't know that he is as effective because I think you go back to what they did the first and second time they played him. When the Giants blitz, Hurts threw it up and there's one-on-one coverage. A.J. Brown was getting 37-yard passes down the field. They did have a play, though, where the Giants sent pressure and they jumped over the top, a little tight end screen to Goddard, and he ended up getting about a 30-yard catch on that. But, yeah, Goddard, to me, you see Hawkinson. I agree. I like Hawkinson. Like, if Detroit would have kept Hawkinson, they ended up trading him because they were way out of it, and then they got back into that thing. Think about a weapon that they just kind of gave up on that was a big factor for Minnesota. But Goddard, to me, he's up there with the Kittles and the Kelseys in terms of how good he can be. He's not nearly as I guess he's not nearly the center, but Kelsey's the whole offense out there, essentially. He's most of the pass game. Kittle has been a much bigger part. They got a lot of weapons, but Kittle's been a lot bigger part of the offense since Purdy has taken over. And Goddard just isn't on that level because of everybody that's around him. He's kind of the third option in the pass game. And then, of course, they have such an effective run game. I think that takes away some of his league-wide name recognition.
Yeah, and I picked Dallas Goedert. I was wrong. It was Lane Johnson, but I picked Dallas Goedert before the season as my top overall Eagles player, just pure football player. I still think he's number 2 or 3, but Lane was so good this year. He was number 1. Now, one bad piece of injury news, Mike, was that Avonte Maddox, it looks like still early, but it looks like he's not going to be able to go. He was the only player who wasn't estimated to participate in the walkthrough yesterday. That sort of, you have these moving parts. We always talk about moving parts on the offensive line. The Eagles don't like it. Defensively, it's worked out. C.J. Gardner-Johnson returns. They put him in the slot when they need a nickel back. They let him play safety when they don't need a nickel corner. Any concern? No Avonte Maddox.
Long term, if he doesn't come back, yes, this would be the week that you would have the least concern. The Giants are pretty limited. The funny thing about Eagles fans, this is the matchup that everybody would say, I'll play the Giants again. Now that they've won, the fact that they've won, people are now like a little concerned. I get the sense that people have some concern after they after they just won, I said, well, they have to win the game for you to match up with them, and this is the matchup they wanted. So the fact that they won, you can't now be concerned. They are so limited. You mentioned this on my show yesterday, John, and I talked about it as well. Minnesota's defense is just not like – think of the Eagles last year. They played they played the John Gannon rushing four, not blitzing a whole heck of a lot. The problem was the Eagles defense last year was not talented enough to play that defense, and that's why they had some problems. They had Steve Nelson, who was not fast enough to cover, so they had to play him so far off the ball. They didn't have enough pressure up front to really get enough pressure, and they had problems with that defense last year. They got better as the year went on, but they just weren't talented enough. Minnesota's defense doesn't have enough talent. They're slow in the secondary. They don't get enough. They don't have enough rotating rushers up front. And the Giants, who are limited on the outside, were able to use that to their advantage. That's not going to happen. That shouldn't happen this week. That's why I think Maddox being out is not as big of a deal in this particular game. Now, if he's out against Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and that crew, that's different.
That's
he's
different.
out, against the CD Lamb, the way they used Lamb the last time. I think you have a little bit more of a question.
And, oh, by the way, I want to shoot down a line of logic that people have expressed since we knew this was going to be the matchup. The improved New York Giant football team. Really? How are we measuring that? At one point this year, the Giants were 6-1. They finished up 9-7-1. You want to go 9-6-1, not count the game that they brought the JV players in against the Eagles. I did the same thing for the Eagles last year in the last game against the Cowboys. So I should give the Giants at least the same accord. So from 6-1 to 9-6-1, where's the improved Giant team? Do we need to go all the way back to preseason expectations? Because I know I did. I know John did. Neither one of us thought the Giants were going to be any good. They were going to be a below 500 team. They're going to be a two-horse race in the East. The Eagles and Cowboys, Commanders and Giants, well behind on both. And to their credit, they passed preseason expectations. But where is the Giant massive improvement? Because they beat up a Nick Foles-led Colt team to lock in a playoff spot in Week 17. Is it just last week when they beat up on the Vikings, which is one of the worst defenses in the NFL? Where is this mindset coming? Hey, it's a much improved Giant team from the one that the Eagles whitewashed 6 weeks ago up there in their place. Not really. Let's see from there. Oh, they beat the Commanders on one of the worst non-calls of the entire year. Pass interference in the end zone at the end of the game when Commanders were down 8. And the Giant D-back just flat out mugged the guy in the end zone, and the ref said, penalty? I don't see a penalty on that one. All right, fine. That's their key win. And then, like I said, the Colt win. Other than that, they got beat by Minnesota. Where does the line of logic come that the Giants are a much improved team, Mike Gill?
Well, I think it's the fact that the Eagles fans, a lot of times don't get to see the Giants. They're on at the same time. Last week, you got a chance to lock in and watch them for a full game. And if you did watch them last week for the first time in a full game setting, they did look pretty good. Daniel Jones looked pretty good last week. Now, if you look back, you'd see Daniel Jones threw for 300 yards. He ran for 70-plus yards. And he did that a couple of weeks ago. It happened to be against the same team, the Vikings. If you sprinkle in the rest of his starts, he really only threw for over 200 yards a handful of times this year. Yeah. But I think it's the fact that you saw them play. They looked good last week against it. Look, I think most of us would say that Minnesota team we were not all that impressed with. The other thing would be, Jody, I do think that Eagles fans understand that this is a well-coached Giants team. That Daboll has certainly, why are they so improved from last year to this year? The roster's not much better. I think they only made like 2 free agent signings. It's not like they went out and became one of those teams that signed all these guys and made all these moves that had you looking at the Giants. This team is just way better prepared and way better coached. That is what has them, you mentioned Brian Daboll, or the coach of the year thing. He probably should and will win that award. And I think that's one of the reasons why you look at this team. It's like anything. when Jacksonville hired Urban Meyer last year, who ended up being a complete failure, there was intrigue in that team. Like, ooh, this could be a fun, interesting team. They got this new coach, and it ended up being a dumpster fire. Not that Dable had that kind of cachet, but now that they're here, it's this guy's a good coach. Like, they're going to be really well prepared, and what kind of game plan are they going to have? And I think they deserve that with him because he's done that good of a job to get them here.
Yeah, I at Mike Gill show, by the way, last one from me, Mike, the Sports Bash, ESPN South Jersey. Brian Daboll he's my coach of the year. And probably because my definition is doing the most with the least. And I think he's done the most with the least. And Doug Peterson would also be in that conversation. Maybe that's a little unfair to Nick Sirianni because I didn't expect the Eagles to be this good, but they were this good. And he deserves credit for that.
Lovie Smith, most with the least.
That's a good, well, certainly the last play of the season, I give Lovie a lot of credit for just sticking it to Houston on the way out the door. But from the coaching perspective here, I do get that feeling like Eagles fans, like, whoa, the Giants are so well coached. Not only Daboll, but Wink and Mike Kapka, who's getting head coaching nibbles already in his young coaching career. The Eagles are 14-1 with the starting quarterback. But Gannon stinks. We all know that. Nick's a goop ball, ordering stuffed crust pizza. Shane Steichen, either he runs it too little, passes it too much, or vice versa, depending on the week. Why? Why is, this is a pretty good stat. Why are they like, ooh, how do you match up with the preparation of Brian Daboll, who I love? Staff's pretty good.
Yeah, I think the Eagles staff is interesting. We talked about this on my show, the fact, you got Peterson wins that game, and then all these Eagle fans are outpouring of Dougie P, great job. Like, there is like this look over there of, where your guy lost in the playoffs last year. He'll get another chance at it. And this staff, really, they didn't have any turnover on this staff. So this staff got a taste of the playoffs, didn't go very well last year. Not that you thought it would. If you enter this game and this staff loses a second time in two playoffs, are you going to start to question anything about, well, they already do question the defensive coordinator, certainly. The offensive coordinator, I don't think, gets as much scorn, nor does he really deserve the scorn. But Nick Sirianni as the head coach, I think he is, while the team is good and he's, I think he's very popular. I don't think that he's negatively looked upon. But if he was to lose this game, you wonder what people would think of Nick Sirianni. I don't know if people outpouringly love this guy. I certainly don't think they hate the guy. He's an interesting cat in this whole thing because he doesn't get a lot of the scorn. Well, they only lost 3 games, that being said. He doesn't get a lot of the scorn when the game is too close for people. That usually goes to Gannon. They should have blitzed more. They didn't do this. The team shouldn't even have been in the game. So I definitely think that the Eagles coaching staff is kind of a weird relationship with a team that's 14-3, right? I mean, isn't it?
It's tremendously weird.
That there would be less questions for a team that's 14-3.
I always say, that Jalen Hurts got hurt. That's part of it, no question. But again, 14-1 with the starting quarterback, top 5 offense, top 5 defense, franchise record for wins. Been around since 1933. Now, granted, they weren't playing 16 games that whole time. Now they play 17, but they were at 13-1 before Jalen Hurts got hurt. Again, top 5 offense, top 5 defense. Record number of sacks. That's all the fans want. Sacks, sack. Go get the quarterback. Record almost set the NFL record. Forget about the franchise record. Came up a little bit short. Yeah, it's bizarre to me. It's bizarre. I said, I'll say it right now. The Eagles aren't going to be this good next season. They might be good. They're not going to be this good.
Yeah, they have a lot of decisions to make as soon as this season's over, and a lot of them on that defensive side of the ball. And look, quite frankly, whether we like it or not, John Gannon most likely, or I guess there's a 50-50 shot that he's not here if he's the favorite in Houston. Shane Steichen could follow him out the door. And a lot of this offense, a lot of the good feel on this offense, guys, is the fact that Jalen Hurts has said, I got the same play caller for 2 straight years now. Never had that before. If Steichen walks out the door, you got to find him. Either you go back to Sirianni as the play caller, or you bring, I don't know, there's somebody on the staff here that they have a good feel about that could walk right back into the same offense. Whatever it is, it's not going to be the same, right? Whatever happens, there's a good possibility that this staff is not intact next year at 2 very key spots.
All right, Mike, last one, and this is crystal ball time. If, let's just say, Dexter Lawrence and all 340 pounds of him on either a run or a passing play happens to land on Jalen Hurts just right, and the shoulder goes bad and he's got to come out of the game, can the gardener, the mustache, lead the Philadelphia Eagles to a coming off the bench victory against the New York Giants?
Sure. I mean, look, Gardner had a tough game against the Saints. There's no question about that. But he has also displayed that I don't think he has ever, since he's been with the Eagles, had to come into a game in that situation. He has started games. He has not had to come in relief in the middle of a game that was meaningful. He's come in relief in blowouts. But I don't think he's ever come in the middle of a game that's competitive. He's either started the game or he's been in a blowout. But yeah, I mean, Gardner is a well-paid, competent backup. That's the reason why the Eagles went and got him. And this is a team in the Giants that Gardner would probably flourish against. He has had his good games in the past. He had a good game against Dallas's defense, which is far superior to the Giant defense. He threw for over 300 yards in that game. He'd also turned the ball over a couple times, and that's third with him. But yeah, I think if they had to turn to Gardner and the game was still competitive, sure that he could lead them back. The big problem would be if he was the quarterback for an extended period of time. If Hurts just got knocked out and couldn't play the rest of the way, well, then I think you have some questions moving forward. You would have a possible Brock Purdy, Gardner Minshew possible matchup.
Who doesn't want to see that? Brock Purdy versus Gardner
That would
Minshew.
be a massive mismatch in favor of the visiting team if that were the case. If Gardner's got to play a half this upcoming week, Eagles DOA. Dead on arrival. Not happening. He's neither highly paid and or all that. He's compared to the other backups in the NFL, he's good. Compared to the other starting quarterbacks in the NFL, he's lacking. And
no question. Yeah, well, listen, but this Giants team is lacking. Let's not forget that, right? This Giants team is lacking as well. And this would be, I think, a monumental disappointment if they lost this game.
I will rip this team to high heaven. Tune in Monday. If they lose this game, they ain't losing this game. They're not losing this game. This would have to be a complete collapse in the same way they lost to Washington. I'm talking 4 turnovers. I'm talking mistakes all over the field. This is a mismatch from a personnel standpoint. Mismatch, and that's why we talked about it.
No, the only way they'll avoid being crushed by yours truly as well is if Gardner Minshew actually does have to come into the game. That would get him a pass in my eyes. But other than that, we're all in agreement. The Eagles should and probably will win this game. Mike Gill, always good to get you on, brother. Appreciate the hoodie look at you got to be a little better with the Panda in Chief stuff going forward, though. Just plain blue isn't going to cut it. But
no, I got some design on here, man. Look at that.
There we go.
What's the logo?
A little bit.
It's a Patagonia. I got it from my girlfriend.
There we go. That's like Pizza Hut. Hopefully we get a sponsorship.
Yeah, by the way, a Twitter poll that I put out, 60% thought about ordering Pizza Hut, 40% actually ordered it.
Wow, that's a good number. That's Nick's got to get at least one comp big pie.
He's got to get a commission. Got to get a commission for that. Got to get a commission for that.
I could see
the disrespect to stop and eat instead of prepare for the New York Giants. What profound disrespect.
Well, I don't know. I don't know the Philly pizza scene nearly as well. So like if he was down the shore, you know, people would be getting on him because he didn't go to like Tony's Baltimore Grill.
Yeah.
You know, you got to get
Josh got on him. Josh got on him because he should have went local.
Right, but I'm saying, where's the local spot? I don't know where.
There's a million of them. There's a million and a half of them.
Manco and Manco's has got to be the number one spot, right? Down the shore.
If you're in Ocean City, right? Yeah, if you're in Ocean City, they actually have a spot in Summers Point too. But like, yeah, but if you're in Atlantic City, you go to Tony's Baltimore Grill, you get a pie over there. You know, you maybe go over to Tony Baloney's.
Yeah. You know, another West Virginia guy, Kevin Kincaid at Crossing Broad, he knows. Well, you know, whether it's IPAs, whether it's pizza, whether it's cheesesteaks, everybody's got to chime in. Just let everybody live. If somebody wants Pizza Hut, go get Pizza Hut. If they want this stinking cheesesteak, go get this cheesesteak.
You know, Pizza Hut's bringing back the New Yorker, the big New Yorker pizza from the 90s. They're bringing that back.
Yes.
Did not know that. I'm going to have to get one of those.
It was a big story. It was a big story last week. There's a Pizza Hut for 5 minutes from my studio that I honestly could have – I totally forgot it was sitting there. And it's right on Tilton Road in EHT. It's like right on the road. And I haven't been in a Pizza Hut. My God, I can't believe it. But I literally said, hey, you know, my girlfriend's away. So I'm like at home by myself this week. So I was like, maybe a Pizza Hut doesn't sound like such a bad idea there, Nick Sirianni.
Exactly right. As always, Mr. Gill, quality information and opinion from you. We thank you for it. We will get you up again next week. Win or lose, better not be a loss because, we'll all be beating up on the Birds if that's the case. Appreciate you jumping in with us today, bud. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, fellas, take care.
Mike Gill,
thanks, Mike.
Here with us on Birds 365. All right, quickie comment before we go to break. A couple of you guys have noted it on the stream. My camera is not fuzzy. My face is fuzzy, okay? For those of you who didn't see us at the beginning of the week, yours truly had a medical procedure last week. I had to have some skin cancer removed from the top of my noggin. Due to the digging around they had to do up there, it caused some trauma. And now I'm getting a little orange in there. Now, that's always a good sign because it's got to go from purple to orange. So the coloration of my face is not due to any camera misfunction that I have. No, that's my actual ugly face. That I'm coming back from a little specific swelling on my face. So I'm a gamer. I play through pain. I'm going to be just like Lane Johnson. Other than the look of it, you're not going to be able to tell. I'm going to be at the top of my game. Those of you who were listening earlier in the week and knew the backstory, thanks for saying, I hope I'm feeling better. I am. Thanks. And I'm actually clearing up. There's a whole bunch of reparations to be done here to get all this ugly, but we're working at it as hard as possible. So thanks for the good wishes and filling in the blanks for the rest of you guys. We'll fill it in for you for another 55 minutes, including talking to Scott Grayson, our bud from Fox 29. He's going to join us in about 15 minutes. Mac and Mac on Birds 365.
My name is Fran Soleno, and I'm Managing Director here at Del Valle Insurance Group. Been in the business for over 36 years, saving people money on their insurance needs. Give us a call. Let us help you custom design an insurance plan that meets both your needs and budget.
Since 1977, it's always been about you, the community, at Rafferty Subaru. And through the Subaru Love Promise, we prove we care by supporting charities like So Good Now.
So Good Now helps kids in under-resourced areas by connecting them with student athletes to serve as mentors. We remove barriers so athletes can help youth in the corners of our communities where light and love are needed most.
When you choose Rafferty Subaru, you help organizations like So Good Now.
It's all about you at Rafferty Subaru.
Go for the beers, go for the cheers, go for the hit and the hits. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean.
We all know that taxes are just part of life. It's true during our working years, but also in retirement. But what you might not know is up to 85% of your Social Security benefits might be taxed. Our team at Thrive Financial has helped retire thousands of people across the Delaware Valley by asking questions they never knew they needed to ask, including how their Social Security benefits might be taxed. It's time to be proactive on taxes. Get your Thrive Retirement Tax Playbook today.
Post-game show with Seth Joyner.
I knew that they had a running game.
Derek Gunn.
He has put in the effort.
Devin Caney.
Had we not won the Super Bowl, what would we be saying?
And Mike Missinelli.
Well, you know who Philly is.
Post-game, now streaming on the 6ABC family of apps.
You got John McMullen and Jody McDonald, your Mega Man guys here on Birds 365. Scotty Grayson from Fox 29 going to jump in less than 15 minutes from now. All right, Johnny Mac, I ran this by BLG last night on WIP, and he didn't have the answer. Not surprising. It was an unfair question by me. So I might as well put it to my partner here on Birds 365 as well. How much money, if the Eagles win this week, if they're victorious over the Giants, how much money is Tyree Cleveland going to make this week?
Tyree Cleveland?
For being added to the Eagles practice squad. And we know that NFL players, when they advance in the playoffs, get bonus money. It's actually paid by the league, not by the individual teams. They put money aside as per the crowds that come into the postseason games, and players get bonuses above and beyond their regular season salary. And the more you advance, the higher the bonus you get. Do practice squad players get any of this? How good a week could it be for Tyree Cleveland, who thought his year was all but over? He's on the Broncos practice squad. The Eagles pick him up off waivers and add him to their practice squad. How good a week could Tyree Cleveland have financially?
Yeah, not that good. Well, you know,
better than you and me. How much money are you going to make if the Eagles win
Yeah.
this week? Unless you're planning on making a big bet there, bud.
Yeah. Well, the Boston Scott bet will help me, but you know, the troll touchdown, as I like to call it. We'll talk about the prop bets with our buddy Scott Grayson, host of Props and Locks. Yeah, I mean, I don't know the numbers because to be honest, I'm not that interested in it, but it's just shockingly low amounts compared to, you know, the typical salaries. You know, baseball, you're a baseball guy. They have a much better sort of postseason spike in revenue when you go far. The NFL, it's always been pretty light from that perspective. So, yeah, I mean, they're involved in it, but and the practice squad salaries are, I think, $12,000 a week this year something in that range, a little bit less.
And it's the same thing for every practice squad player, right? There's
no, you can play guys more. There's wiggle room. A lot of guys get more than that, to be honest. A lot of veterans, since they changed the rules, a lot of veteran players, it's not drastic, not like a regular salary, but there is some wiggle room to that.
Okay. I thought everybody was the same.
Yeah. Let's see. Just looking it up real quick. 11,500 per week is the minimum. 19,900 is the maximum. So there's a lot of wiggle room there for practice squad players. But that's week through week 18. The playoffs sort of. It's a weird setup financially, to be honest. But everybody wants to be in the playoffs, so nobody's complaining about it.
All right. Speaking of complaining, we're doing a lot of that today, or noting other people's complaining. How much complaining are we going to get leading up to, during, and after the Fox broadcast, which, of course, you can listen to Mike and Merrill on 94 WIP, the actual hometown broadcast team. A lot of people will just leave their TV on and take the Fox broadcast, which this week it's Joe Davis, Moose Johnston, Pam Oliver on the sidelines, a.k.a. Fox's B team. Their second broadcast team, the top team, Kevin Burkhardt and Greg Olson, are heading out to San Francisco for 49ers and Cowboys. A, it's the B team. B, Moose Johnston used to be a Cowboy. How much complaining after the fact will we get about the broadcast out? I kind of, now this is just me, I'd pay attention to the game itself and what's actually going on down on the field rather than getting worked up one way or the other about how or who is calling the game. But there are some people out there, John, that are going to have major issues. I said, did I say this with you the other day? I think we stayed away from it on Birds 365. And if that's the case, I'm glad. Well, I'm kind of glad that we did. The outrage of Al Michaels' call at the end of the
I didn't even hear it. I was watching the game and I didn't even hear it. I don't know. When I watch games, which is not often because I'm usually at stadiums,
right?
But when I kind of tune it out. Like I don't pay that much attention to the announcers. But yeah, to your point, they're going to be incensed. I mean, there's two things. Well, first of all, they're going to be incensed by the officials, Clete Blakeman, which, by the way, the Eagles have a tremendous record when Clete Blakeman is the referee. So another advantage for the Eagles traditionally. I think it's like 13-1. It's outrageous.
Really?
Yeah, something like that. Don't quote me on that, but it's really good. So it'll be officials first, announcers second, and I don't get either of them. So, I don't get either of them. I looked it up real quick. Last year, you got $65,000 if you reach the conference championship. The players, I don't know, practice squad, and the Super Bowl, 150 for the winner, 75 for the loser. And that 65 was up 6,000. So if it's up 6,000 this year, that would make it 71 and 100. But yeah, it's not like baseball when you reach the postseason. It's a little bit strange.
And in defense of baseball, they play a series. And in the National Football League, you play one game. So there's only so much revenue coming in. And the big derivation is that television money. The owners hold on to that television money. The television money just goes through the roof for playoff broadcasts. It seems like the players aren't getting their percentage of it. If the numbers you're quoting are accurate, that they can or should be getting more. But I just think it's hysterical, the things that people complain about, that Michaels thing. the Jaguars had one of the greatest comebacks in the history of the National Football League, postseason third biggest comeback ever. The nervy go for 2 points with Trevor Lawrence by Doug Peterson. And after the game, all social media is talking about what an uninspired call by Al Michaels. Why is Al Michaels still doing good? Get that old man out of here. He has no. Well, number one, I watch every Thursday night game. I do a Twitter Spaces spot at halftime of every Thursday night game. So I watched Al Michaels all year on Amazon. I get Amazon, so I'm watching it anyway. Al Michaels is Al Michaels. He's still great. I thought Kirk Herbstreit actually was really good. I had my questions about Herbstreit. What are you doing, college football all week long, and then you're going to parachute in for the NFL? Hey, come on. He was really good. I thought their Amazon broadcast in-game stuff was phenomenal. Pre- and post-game, that's another story. But I thought they were great. All right, so he had an uninspired call on the last play of the game. There was a penalty which kind of botched it to begin with anyway. But people get worked up about the stupidest things. Pizza Hut stuff.
Well, no better indication of it this week. I'm going to rip our own producer, Tone, right now. Tone was upset that Dexter Lawrence called Jason Kelsey scrappy. I mean, what are we doing here? I can't get that. Everybody gets upset over everything.
Is he not scrappy?
He is very scrappy.
Exactly.
Dexter Lawrence is 6'4", probably 350 on a good day. Jason Kelsey's undersized for a center. That was the whole thing why he was a 6th-round pick. I mean, the fact that he's able to do what he's able to do is phenomenal because he's usually facing people like Dexter Lawrence. But he wasn't insulting Jason Kelsey. I've heard him talk about Jason Kelsey. He's got tremendous respect for Jason Kelsey. But yeah, I mean, whether it's Pizza Hut or announcers, officials, like Clete Blakeman is not against the Eagles. I guarantee you that. So
you got to get me that exact number tomorrow. What the Eagles' record is in games that he's refereed, because if it's as substantial as you said, that's just now the Eagles are this good. They went 14-3, so we expect all of the referees who had a chance to referee the Eagles. Some of them have been doing it longer, so they'll have a longer track record. But just recently, the Eagles' numbers are going to be good with every refereeing crew. But if that's the case, 13-1 and one refereeing crew. Holy mackerel, that would be awesome.
I'd be more upset if I were the Giants. I probably shouldn't have said that.
You should have. It's a word.
No, I don't know. I don't know if that number is official.
Okay. Yeah, no. And we're not holding you to it, but do me a favor if you know how to look that up.
13-1. 13-1. That number is right. 13-1. 13-1.
That's yeah, please try and make an argument on, the Eagles got screwed by the refereeing crew that they sent here for the game. Stop it. Can't be when they're sending in a team that's 13-1 in Eagle games that they've worked together.
Well, and by the way, there might be a call that goes against the Eagles. There probably will be a call that goes against the Eagles on Saturday.
It's not everything. It's not Big Brother. It's not Roger Goodell making a call from Madison Avenue, calling down. This game's too close. You got to give the Giants a call here. We can't have this.
Not everything is a conspiracy, and human beings, like officials, do make mistakes, and it's not because they hate your favorite team. I don't get it. I'll never get it. Same thing with announcers. There's certain, now I always joke because, I've said this before, NFL Films is in Mount Laurel. It's been in Mount Laurel for forever. If anything, there are more people in the NFL who are Eagles fans than probably any other team in television production because of where NFL Films has been. Now they do a lot of work in Los Angeles as well. So maybe it's shifting a little bit, but for years, there was an astonishing amount of Eagles fans just because most people around here are Eagles fans. And there was always this method of, Now, I get it. The high profile, they go with Cowboys. So that's part of it with Tony Romo and Troy Aikman. And you mentioned Darryl Johnston. I've never seen any evidence that they're kowtowing over to the Dallas Cowboys on broadcast, but I don't watch it that much or pay attention to
an
it.
ex-Cowboy coming in to do the game this week. Believe you me, when come Sunday, when we're analyzing the job done by the broadcast network, it's going to be biased against the Philadelphia Eagles. That's pretty much a guarantee. All right, he's John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald. I see in our waiting room, we've got Scott Grayson, sports anchor from Fox 29, and host of Props and Locks there. We'll get into Eagles Giants with Scotty G next here on Birds 365.
My name is Fran Soleno, and I'm a managing director here at Del Valle Insurance Group. Been in the business for over 36 years, saving people money on their insurance needs. Give us a call. Let us help you custom design an insurance plan that meets both your needs and budget.
Since 1977, it's always been about you, the community, at Rafferty Subaru. And through the Subaru Love Promise, we prove we care by supporting charities like So Good Now.
So Good Now helps kids in under-resourced areas by connecting them with student athletes to serve as mentors. We remove barriers so athletes can help youth in the corners of our communities where light and love are needed most.
When you choose Rafferty Subaru, you help organizations like So Good Now.
It's all about you at Rafferty Subaru.
Go for the beers, go for the cheers, go for the hit and the hits. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean.
We all know that taxes are just part of life. It's true during our working years, but also in retirement. But what you might not know is up to 85% of your Social Security benefits might be taxed. Our team at Thrive Financial has helped retire thousands of people across the Delaware Valley by asking questions they never knew they needed to ask, including how their Social Security benefits might be taxed. It's time to be proactive on taxes. Get your Thrive Retirement Tax Playbook today.
Post-game show with Seth Joyner.
I knew that they had a running game.
Derek Gunn.
He has put in the effort.
Devin Caney.
Had we not won the Super Bowl, what would we be saying?
And Mike Missinelli.
Well, you know who Philly is.
Post-game, now streaming on the 6ABC family of apps.
You got Mac and Mac here on Birds 365. We are joined by our bud from Fox 29, Mr. Scott Grayson, who looks ready for some football. He's gone non-hoodie on us. He's actually got a nice dress golf shirt.
Yeah. Oh, he's a TV guy. He's got to look sharp. You know, we can show up with the hoodies and
Apparently, I don't look sharp because these guys keep ripping me on the. I had surgery on my head. Okay, that's why I've got black eyes. Trauma to my head. I'm not fuzzying up my camera. I don't give a shit what I look like. If I did, I wouldn't be doing the show. I would have backed out and go, just put Grayson in for me. He's a TV guy. He looks good. If looking good was the key determinant, then I sure as hell wouldn't be here. But Scott Grayson, you do look good. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, glad to be here. I always appreciate the invitation. And what you have, Jody, what you look like you got going on here is a good playoff football look.
Yeah.
It got your ass kicked look more than anything else. But thank you for noticing.
Hey, you're doing great. You're coming to work, punching the clock no matter what.
That's right,
That's
man.
the Philly way.
Exactly right.
That's the Philly way. Rocky, you fight through it. You fight through it. And the Eagles are fighting through it, or are they, Scott? Because, hey, I said before the playoffs started, this is the matchup I would have wanted for the Eagles. But first of all, that old trope. It's hard to beat a team 3 times, even though the numbers say the exact opposite. Then you had Clete Blakeman as the official. I just brought that up. We'll go down that route. You might want to throw this on the show. The Eagles are 13-1 when Clete Blakeman is the referee. Things look good on paper, don't they, Scott?
They do. And sometimes, I guess as an Eagles fan, right, that's what causes you to kind of look in the mirror and go, wait a minute. If things are too good to be true, or they look too good to be true, do I need to stop and think about what I'm missing here, right? I agree with you, John. I think this is the matchup that a lot of people as Eagles fans were looking at and saying this is a good one. This is what you'd like to have. I mean, it just, everything screams Eagles, all the stats. I mean, the pressure you get from the defense, you're getting healthier on the back end with Gardner Johnson having shaken off some rust in that last regular season game against the Giants. I don't expect Devontae Maddox back this week, but he's getting closer. On offense, you've got Lane Johnson back in there again. And, everything says this team at home, with the crowd on a Saturday night, like the NFL is giving these fans plenty of time to get all lathered up and ready to go.
All day. Nice job, NFL.
It says it should be Eagles. I mean, the spread is saying Eagles by more than a touchdown. Last I looked, I feel like it's all right there. It's the only way this team loses is if they beat themselves.
Yeah.
Did your confidence level in Jalen Hurts' shoulder improve in the last 24 hours, Scott Grayson?
Honestly, Jody, I've been one of those people all along who hasn't been all that worried about it, because when I saw what he did in the fourth quarter in Chicago after hurting it, that was an impressive quarter for a healthy quarterback, let alone a guy with a sore shoulder. I think they just were being very careful, which was the prudent and smart thing to do. But now that you're in the playoffs, I know he's not on the injury report now. Obviously, that does make me feel a little better. To not have any kind of injury designation there from practicing. But overall, I think you look at Jalen Hurts and you've got to take the leash off him now. You've got to let Jalen be Jalen. Let him be the guy who got you here in the first place. And I fully expect that they will. Like, you're in the playoffs now. It's survive and advance. You got to go out there with your best. And I think you got to go out there with your best Jalen, which is letting him do what he does best. He's just got to be smart in the process. And I think he's more than capable of doing that.
You mentioned, and I go back to that Washington game, and I agree with you, Scott. Like the Eagles are 14-1 when Jalen Hurts starts, and the one loss is the Washington game. And they kind of say behind the scenes, maybe we're 15-0 because we beat ourselves with the 4 turnovers and all that stuff that happened in that game, not being able to get off the field, huge time of possession. But if you look at the New York Giants and you throw that out and say, all right, if the Eagles shoot themselves in the foot, is there anything personnel wise that you say, oh, we might have a problem with this from the Giants?
Yeah, I mean, that's right. That's another thing you look at and say every matchup almost favors the Eagles. But the one thing that you look at and where you could go, Jody, back to Jalen Hurts is, we know the Giants love to blitz. They're the highest blitzing team in the league. So now I know they didn't blitz a ton against the Vikings, which was a little uncharacteristic. Partially might have been what confused Kirk Cousins a little bit. But, I expect that they will go back to being what they are. They're going to come at you with what they do best. They blitz. And I think they're going to look to get Jalen out of the pocket. They're going to look to get him out moving around. They want him moving. They want him testing that shoulder on the move. They want him potentially turning upfield and running the ball. And whether or not they're there to be able to make the plays is going to be another story. But I think if you look at it, it's not so much personnel that concerns me at all with the Giants. It's how will the Eagles handle what they do? Is Lane Johnson going to be well enough to shift quickly and pick up a blitzer. To make the read he needs to make on that offensive line to stop that guy coming through. Those are the kind of things that I think are going to be more interesting to watch. There's not really any personnel that concerns me here. I mean, they held Saquon Barkley in check the first time. The game one is what I look at. That last game of the regular season was junk, and obviously it was what it was. But there's nothing personnel-wise that says to me, Daniel Jones with his legs even is the one thing I concern myself with potentially a little bit, but the Eagles linebackers are built to be able to handle something like that. And this line gets to you in a hurry. So, no, I'm not too worried about any one person or any matchup specifically personnel-wise with that team.
All right, so I appreciate the fact that you cut Kirk Cousins some slack. Did they blitz on that massive 4th and 8 4-yard?
That was just Dexter Lawrence bulldozing
that was bad.
Cleveland. Yeah.
Kurt, what the hell were you thinking there, buddy? Anyway, last time the Eagles and Giants played regulars against regulars up at MetLife 6 weeks ago, the Eagles only registered 7 sacks against Daniel Jones, including 3 by BG Brandon Graham. How big is the Eagles pass rush in this game? Because to Daniel Jones's credit, he's played better. Still don't think he's great. Think he's good. Think he's a solid quarterback and he's capable of playing a nice game against the Eagles this week. How much pressure do they need to get on him to make sure that doesn't happen?
Well, I think that's the key. It was twofold, right? Like I said, they did a good job of limiting Saquon Barkley and putting the Giants in some, 2nd and 3rd and longs. That helps any defensive pass rush. And if they can do that again, I have full confidence that Daniel Jones will make some mistakes. And that pass rush is good. I mean, we all, at times, I have been critical of Gannon as well with his defensive style and the lack of blitzing, but they're getting there without the blitz. And to his credit, he hasn't changed who he is, despite the criticism that comes from this city. And I think in this game, it sets up very well for the Eagles to get home without having the need to blitz. And it's key. You want to get back there. And even if you don't get back there, you've got to hit the quarterback. And if you can hit Jones and you start making him aware you're there, he's going to throw it up and you're going to get some interceptions. I think that's the game plan right there, is just limit the running game enough with Saquon that you can get out there and then get that pass rush home with all these guys they have on this defensive line. I mean, it's ridiculous that they have almost like a hockey line change they can do on that defensive line with the amount of guys who can get home. It is a huge advantage to this defense when you get in the postseason. I know everybody keys every team in the league, but this defense I fully expect. I'm looking to see this defense, quite frankly, be how they win this game. To me, that's what I want to see. I want them to get home. Like you said, 7 sacks. Go get Daniel Jones. Just get him down. Don't even let him get out of the pocket. And I think they're capable of doing that. This is a really good defensive line that I think will set the tone.
I do want to bring up Saquon just from the standpoint of, that guy's talented. I mean, he is really, really talented. And, we talk about the Eagles' personnel advantages and all the great decisions Howie Roseman has made, rightfully so. One of them's Kaiser White. Doesn't get as much, hype, nor should he, as Hassan Reddick and A.J. Brown and James Bradbury, but really solid pickup. He has, however, kind of faltered down the stretch. Now, he played great in the Giants in Week 18, but as you said, I kind of junked that. That was a junk game. I throw that out. Saquon was not out there. The 2 previous games, he really, really struggled. Probably his worst games of the year. And this guy in the passing game, I'm not worried as much about Saquon in the running game. The Eagles play how they play against the run, and they're going to give up some runs because they're more concerned about the big play down the field. But when he gets the football with those swing passes, that concerns me a little bit. Am I overestimating that?
No, I don't think you are, because as he vacates the backfield, that's going to create an issue of, and this is where I'll be curious to see whether the Eagles leave any kind of spy in the mix for Daniel Jones. But when you bring the back out, you take a linebacker most likely on him, of course, like you said. What does that do for what you're leaving behind for potentially Daniel Jones to escape a pocket and go somewhere? As well as, like you said, Saquon is really good out of the backfield. He's a good receiver. once he gets those pads north-south, that's the key. You got to get upfield and get there when he catches the ball, not allow him to get north-south and then be able to make some moves. I think that is going to be a thing you've got to watch this week. They're going to be looking to get the ball out of Daniel Jones' hands fast. Well, how do you do that? You got to utilize the back. You've got to utilize your tight ends. So that is going to be that is their biggest strength, Saquon Barkley and his versatility. And I got to believe that they're going to go down swinging with their best, and that's something you're going to have to keep an eye on. But like you said, Kaiser White in Week 18 did play better. Why is that significant? I think it allowed him to build some confidence because you're right, he has struggled down the stretch. So I looked at that, and that was one of the takeaways I took was I'm seeing Kaiser White flying around the field in a way I haven't seen him the last few weeks. And I know it was the backups for the Giants, but in terms of building confidence and getting back into a rhythm, I thought that was key. And we'll see how much it matters for him to build off of that this coming week. But because I think he will be, with his speed, he is going to be one of those guys who's going to have to keep an eye on Barkley when he gets out of the backfield. And so that will be a matchup to watch.
Scotty, no, even after this game is played, hopefully, still less than 2 full years in Nick Sirianni's coaching career. That being said, how important is this game to his career resume? I know it's only going to grow. We hope Sirianni's around here for a nice long period of time, and we got a big sample size to judge from, but playoff wins are playoff wins, and you can go 14-3, but if you get picked off at home by a 7-point underdog in the first round, kind of makes that 14-3 disappear. How important is this game to Nick Sirianni's coaching resume?
I think it's big, Jody. I don't think you can understate how big this is. You're right. 14-3, you got this home game here, a home playoff game. If they lose this game to a division opponent, no less, who's been in the realms of the dungeons for the last, decade or so, for the most part, you allow them to get up off the mat and go to the NFC Championship game by beating you at home. This town will not let you forget that for a while. And it'll be a long off season full of plenty of criticism of having the good team and not being able to take it anywhere close to the finish line. I set the bar when this season started with, I need to see them get a playoff win. Now, I know they advanced to a further round than they did last year, but I still want to see that. I need to see that playoff win. And this gets you to the NFC Championship game. You've got everything set up for you. You've got the weakest opponent remaining in the NFC. It's there for you. And if you can't get it done, that speaks volumes to then what's not happening that you can't get it done in the playoffs. I look back to last year. There's people who say there shouldn't be 7 teams in the playoffs. Maybe not. I mean, what was broken was 6. But when you look back to last year, the Eagles getting that playoff experience with this young team, that young quarterback, this coaching staff, I expect that to pay dividends this year. I got to believe they learned a lot in that experience last year going down to Tampa with preparation, with focus, with game planning. And now you're the dog, you're the big dog, you've got the target on your back. How do you handle that? I think there's a lot to be learned from last year, and I need to see that pay off with a good win at home this year.
Yeah, it was interesting. Talked about that with Nick Sirianni yesterday. He kind of downplayed it, Scott, but the players, they said, especially Jordan Mailata, they said it was very valuable. So certainly I think from a player perspective, at least, Nick's very cognizant of nothing changes. Week 1, Detroit, playoffs, preparation stays the same. I get that from a coaching perspective. But, and I want to talk about the coaching staff as a whole. It's kind of strange to me. Brian Daboll, tremendous job. I think he should be coach of the year. I've said it because my definition is doing the most with the least, and I think that defines him. Doesn't mean he's a better coach than Nick Sirianni or that staff is a better staff than this staff, which was, again, they were 14-1 with their starting quarterback. But you get this narrative in Philadelphia. Forget about New York. In Philadelphia, where their coaching staff is better than ours. Is that just the typical Philadelphia angst? Because this staff is pretty damn good.
The staff in New York you're talking about?
Well, both. But
no,
the staff in Philadelphia. But I get the feeling that there's a lot of Eagles fans, not all of them, a lot of Eagles fans who think, that staff is better than our staff. I don't get that mentality.
No, and that's partly because of what I said before about the anxiety we all get watching Jonathan Gannon, right? They get a big lead.
It's always poor JG.
and how much credit then do you give Shane Steichen because you know that Nick Sirianni's an offensive coach? There's that, I think, that all goes into it, and that perception. How good has this staff been? Well, you look at, to me, I look back at last year to this year, and I'll take Jonathan Gannon first. Last year, a very passive defense. Clearly something happened where he said, I need XYZ type of personnel to fit what I want to do. And they gave it to him. And now you see what's happened as a result. Very successful defense, very successful, almost historic level of sacks that this team was able to do with very minimal blitzing. And then they've got the back end to be able to get plays done, the personnel there. To me, I think that Jonathan Gannon deserves a lot of credit. He makes me pull my hair out, a little more gray here on the sides watching this team with
at least you got hair to pull out.
Leads. They get passive with the lead, but he's playing the long game and knowing the analytics and the stats, they have very little time left on the clock, blah, blah, blah. I get it. You can't argue with results. They're winning. Shane Steichen, look, there's a reason these guys are getting a lot of job opportunities. Steichen has, the interviews just like Gannon does, and I expect one or if not both to be gone from here. That doesn't happen because of all the talking of going on. These teams are doing their homework. How much are these guys really, a factor in the success of this team? I think the interviews and the job interviews tell you about their reputation and their work ethic. I think that's a big key. But you're right. I think that you've got to give credit to the Giants coaching staff and more around the league. Look at the coaches that are left. What is the common theme? They create winning and positive cultures within their buildings. Doug Peterson has totally changed, like he did here coming in after Chip Kelly, has changed the culture in Jacksonville in 1 year. Had to remake that culture from what Urban Meyer did. That wasn't an easy task. You look at Dable. He's changed the culture there in New York. I think that's the biggest, factor. And I think the players are responding to that. That's what today's players want. They want that kind of winning culture. They want to feel that coach has their back. I think Dable's done a great job of that. I think Gannon and his staff have done a great job of that too. So you're going to see two good coaches and coaching staffs here in Philadelphia on Saturday.
Wow, you've just planted a seed in my mind. Best way to succeed as an NFL head coach. Jump in after an overrated college coach is destroyed the program, and you all of a sudden become a superhero.
Yeah.
That's all you got to do. Follow Doug Peterson's lead. Replace Chip Kelly and or Urban Meyer, and you too can be considered a phenomenal coach. I never put those two together. Shame on me for that. Thank you for that, Scott. Great. All right. Sounds like I'm a bigger Jonathan Gannon fan than you are. McMullen, unquestionably a bigger Jonathan Gannon fan than you are. But here's one concern that I do have for the game coming up on Saturday. The whole they don't blitz enough thing is idiotic. The fans who go down that road, they got to be more aggressive. As you just pointed out, almost historic sack numbers. When you get that, you can't question how he goes about getting it. And the fact that people still do just makes me nuts. But I think a more legit concern is they don't play aggressively on the outsides, on the corners. They don't press. They play zone. They play zone 95% of the time. And the Giants, with their somewhat surprising, maybe even overachieving wide receivers, certainly no one with any kind of a track record, they have less 25-yard down the field plays than anyone in the National Football League. They're dead last, 32nd out of 32. So if they're going to throw the football, it's either going to be Barkley out of the backfield or quick hitters to their wide receivers. Do you have any faith that Gannon will let Bradford and Slay get up and play some bump and run coverage on Saturday against the Giants? Because at least as per the statistics, that's one thing you can and should be looking to take away from the Giants.
Yeah, and I think that's been what I've been waiting for this, because the last few weeks in December, as they were that one win away from clinching the number one seed, I felt like they got they closed down the playbook a little bit, and they got more vanilla on defense, especially with all the zone against the Cowboys. They played the Giants a little bit loose because I think they knew they had the chance to face these teams in the playoffs and didn't want to tip their cap too much, head to head like that. And so I want to see Gannon go back. These, to me, Slay and Bradbury are two guys who want that one-on-one coverage. They want that pressure on them to make a play. And I think they're better, frankly, in those areas. So I expect Gannon to go back to, and do more of letting them, play their game. But you're right. It is a frustrating thing watching this team in so much zone. And Dak Prescott just picked it apart in that Dallas game, left and right. It was that vanilla. And I think that I expect, and again, look, Gannon, we've all heard the reports. He's believed to be a front runner or one of the front runners for the Houston Texans job. And you got a job interview here on Saturday night. I would expect him to unleash a great game plan to show that he's got all these different weapons and tools and this versatility and can confuse the heck out of Daniel Jones. And I want to see these corners play more that way. I mean, at times it's like it's screaming, play pressure coverage, press them, jab them at the line. You're right, Jody. They don't threaten you downfield. So what's the best way to disrupt a route? You jab them at the line and get the timing off. I mean, it's screaming to do that more this week. But as Gannon frustrates us, I expect that at times he will drop into zone when we're saying, no, it's telling you to do. He knows more football than I do. You got to trust him. But I agree with you at those corners. I want to see them playing more man and more pressure coverage. I can't stand the loose zones.
Yeah, nobody can. It's not aesthetic, but if you watch wild card football, you saw a lot of zone coverages around, and the Eagles do it better than anybody else. So I think contextually, that's where JG kind of sets himself apart. At S Grayson Box 29, follow him on Twitter. Host of Props and Locks, 6:30, right, Scott? Every Friday.
6:30 Friday night. We got a lot of playoff stuff we're going to get into this weekend. It should be a lot of fun.
My lock this week in props and locks is the Boston Scott touchdown. The Eagles are well aware of the numbers, and they kind of like to troll the Giants by getting Boston Scott the touch that gets him the touchdown. What's your lock this week when you're talking about the Eagles Giants?
It is funny you said that, because I've thought that from the moment that matchup started. It's like, well, and you'd see the memes on Twitter and social media. I mean, the different, Boston Scott strutting into the office, all these different guys, because he knows he's going to get one this week. He has. It's what history says will happen. To me, that's a great one. To that extent, I wonder if the Eagles have considered, I mean, you look at I know they won't because they're creatures of habit, but how great would it be to throw him back there on some punt returns or a kickoff return? Or two.
Well, he might get the kickoff return. Yeah, he's been doing a great job.
I'm all for getting the guy some more touches because clearly he produces against this team, and that like it's got to be in their heads, right? The Giants, and so to me that's a great one. Another one this week, I would expect you could play a Dak Prescott interception. I expect he'll throw one. I think, on that side of the ball, that's great. The AFC is just going to be fun to watch because I think that's going to just be a heavyweight fight. Street fight.
All right, I'll give you one since you bring up the AFC. I'm going to give you another one, Scott. Go over 5 sacks of Joe Burrow because that Cincinnati offensive line is really banged up. Ton of injuries.
Yep.
Plus, Joe likes to hang on to the football. He's that guy that likes to hang on to it to the very last minute, try to get the big plays down the field, and he'll get some of them. But he's going to get knocked down quite a bit, I think.
It's not a bad one. And the other thing with if you look at Cincinnati, they haven't had a home playoff game, last week, but they're playing so many games on the road, and now this one is a tough one as well. And it's not a bad thought there. I know a lot of people want to see Jacksonville be competitive with Kansas City. I just don't see it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm rooting for Doug, but I'm with you.
Let me close it out with you on this note, Scott. I'm going to give you a multiple choice question.
Okay.
And I know full well the answer is probably somewhere between A and B, but you have to pick either A or B. Which are the two are you closer to? It's a stone cold lock that sometime in the very near future, Brock Purdy turns back into a pumpkin and the rookiness shows out and he makes a big mistake and he crashes and burns, or this guy is the second coming of Kurt Warner, out of the supermarket, stocking shelves, NFL Europe, the Arena League, and he takes the Rams all the way to the Super Bowl and runs the greatest show on turf. We know the answer is somewhere in the middle between those two things, but which one are you closer to, A or B?
See, I'm of the opinion that I will give you your answer after I give an explainer. I'm of the opinion that he is partially a product of the talent around him. Now that, he's done a great job. The Eagles have not made him, not the Eagles, teams have not made him have to win the game with his arm by throwing 30 to 40 times. What will happen when that happens? That I want to see. I think, when you line him up with Christian McCaffrey, which was a huge and amazing trade for them to make in the season, that's been a key piece. You had the Mr. Versatility, Deebo Samuel. You got George Kittle over the middle, who has been a real big security blanket for Purdy. And then you give him the defense he has on the other side of the ball. Has he really had to win a game for them?
And don't forget Brandon Ayuk as well. He's a playmaker.
So has he really had to win a game for them? So will he turn back into a pumpkin? I'll tell you this, Jody. I want to see, as much as it would be a phenomenal week of trash talk and God knows what here in Philadelphia if it's Eagles-Cowboys for an NFC Championship game, I kind of want to see this Eagles defense against that Niners offense and what they would do with Purdy and how he would answer to get a better answer, frankly, to your question. Which way is he leaning towards? Am I leaning towards? I think he's shown enough to show he can be a player in this league. I'm not saying he's a Hall of Famer like Kurt Warner. Can he be a starting quarterback in this league? Yes. I'm convinced he can be a starting quarterback in this league. Yeah. I think I don't know if that answers your question well enough.
Yeah.
It does.
I like the Parsons
qualifier that a lot of people do. Oh, but look at all the weapons he had. Well, guess what? Kurt Warner had all those weapons too. And nobody said, "Oh, Kurt Warner's not really good."
I think the better comp is Jimmy Garoppolo. For everyone who says Jimmy had all that, but he didn't play as well as Brock Purdy. So for the people that completely crap on Brock Purdy, I think he is playing well. But I'm not going to hedge, Scott. I'm going to predict pumpkin and midnight strikes January 29th in Philadelphia.
That's what I'm
apart in front of a bunch of 70,000 people where you can hear the noise across the Delaware River. Completely falls apart. That's my prediction.
We'll get a good early look at that. What does he do when Micah Parsons is harassing him? And what do the Niners do to try to avoid that? Because that's Micah Parsons who can get that rush. But when you have,
and he might not even get here. You're right. That Cowboys team, they lack consistency, but if they play well, they can beat anybody. So he might not even get here.
Tone, save that clip. Completely falls apart again.
Completely falls apart. I'm not running from it.
Way the hell out there on the limb on that one.
Yeah. By the way, I heard that same sentiment from a certain Eagles player yesterday in the locker room. They're not supposed to look ahead, but they're chomping at the bit to get at Brock Purdy.
Okay,
I'm sure.
Be careful what you wish for. Sure. Scotty Locke, we wish always a pleasure whenever you jump on board with us. Give our boy Eitan a hey for us. Thank you much for doing it today.
Yeah, Eitan, usually you have to smack him in the face a couple times.
Thanks, Scott.
All right, you got it, guys. Thank you.
Fox 29 here with us on Birds 365. All right, running a little late. We got to come back, put a bow on the show here on Birds 365.
My name is Fran Soleno, and I'm Managing Director here at Del Valle Insurance Group. Been in the business for over 36 years, saving people money on their insurance needs. Give us a call. Let us help you custom design an insurance plan that meets both your needs and budget.
Since 1977, it's always been about you, the community, at Rafferty Subaru. And through the Subaru Love Promise, we prove we care by supporting charities like So Good Now.
So Good Now helps kids in under-resourced areas by connecting them with student athletes to serve as mentors. We remove barriers so athletes can help youth in the corners of our communities where light and love are needed most.
When you choose Rafferty Subaru, you help organizations like So Good Now.
It's all about you at Rafferty Subaru.
Go for the beers, go for the cheers, go for the hit and the hits. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean.
We all know that taxes are just part of life. It's true during our working years, but also in retirement. But what you might not know is up to 85% of your Social Security benefits might be taxed. Our team at Thrive Financial has helped retire thousands of people across the Delaware Valley by asking questions they never knew they needed to ask, including how their Social Security benefits might be taxed. It's time to be proactive on taxes. Get your Thrive Retirement Tax Playbook today.
Post-game show with Seth Joyner.
I knew that they had a running game.
Derek Gunn.
He has put in the effort.
Devin Caney.
Had we not won the Super Bowl, what would we be saying?
And Mike Missinelli.
Well, you know who Philly is.
Post-game, now streaming on the 6ABC family of apps.
Running out of time here on Birch 365, McMullen and McDonald. All right, if I go to JAKIBsports.com a little later today and look up the latest posted John McMullen article on the Philadelphia Eagles, what's it most likely going to be about?
It depends what people say down at the NovaCare complex today. You never know where it's going to go, Jody. But I did want to address, I did do the Boston Scott thing. I think that's you got to do that during the Giants week. And there's been so many Giants weeks. And by the way, in the 48-22 win at MetLife, Boston Scott scored. In week 18, Boston Scott scored. Has 17 career touchdowns, 10 against the New York Giants. It's unbelievable.
That is stone cold unbelievable. But for those who were benefited from it, and I said it on Birds 365, I said a day of game on WIP, 3-1 Boston Scott anytime touchdown lock, and it was. I haven't seen the number yet. They don't post these numbers that far out. The player prop locks are not usually posted this far out yet, so it hasn't come out yet. It's going to be maybe slightly above 2-1. Probably under 2-1. Yeah, the Vegas books have gotten wise to this, that it's a given that the Eagles bend over backwards to try and get Boston Scott a touchdown against the New York Giants. Well, I'll be looking forward to whatever you post. Have a good day down at the NovaCare complex. Good one tomorrow. John Stolnis is going to be on with us, and hopefully Ralph Vecchiano, who covers the entire NFC East for Fox. So we got two good guests.
And Barrett's going to be in for me hour 2 because everything's moved up a day.
So tomorrow is Sirianni Day?
Yeah. So
tomorrow. Okay.
Because it's Saturday instead of a Sunday game. So everything. So Barrett Brooks kind enough. I'll be here hour 1. He'll be here hour 2 with Jody McDonald.
Sounds good. All right. J-Mac would do it again tomorrow in 2-2.
You've been listening to Birds 365. the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate inside the locker room and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.